Welcome to Merger Wednesdays on the Final Boss Podcast, where the future isn't coming, it's already happening. This is the merge, the convergence of AI kind and humankind. Not theory, not hype, but real-time evolution. Each week, we break down doctoral-level insights, turning complex innovation into conversations that move culture forward. From machine learning to human consciousness, from automation to identity, this is where intellect meets impact. The question isn't if the merge will happen, it's who will light it. Tap in, level up, and think beyond the algorithm. This is Merger Wednesdays. New era, same boss.
Welcome to Merger Wednesdays. Merger Wednesdays, ladies and gentlemen, is here, man. I feel like we just did this, man. I feel like we just did this. It is Merger Wednesdays. Look, shout out to the Sensei, man, for holding the fort down last night, man. He did a really amazing job. Great topic, man. Some information on there that you guys need to go check out and possibly utilize for the future, right? Go check that episode out. Episode number 252, and it was last night on Tech Tuesday, right? It was hosted by the Sensei, right? Shout out to the Sensei. Now, I have a great show for you tonight, but before we get into the show, let's get these admin notes out the way, right? First, the greeting of the day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Good night, people. That is the greeting of the day. And as always, this is for entertainment purposes only. We are going ready to knock the show out, and we're going to knock it out of the box, man. I have a great show, great information, right? This is season 4, the rebirth arc for the construction, right? This is the merger series, right? Feels good to do that, man. Feels good to do that. Look, if you haven't already, go pick up Go Time All Aboard the Fired Up Train. Go pick up Go Time All Aboard the Fired Up Train. Is out right now. For all of your it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere where all books are sold, right? Where all books are sold. Go pick up Go Time All Aboard the Fired Up Train. Go Time 2 is dropping in July. Go Time 2 is dropping in July, man. Make sure you go get Go Time 2 when it does drop. I'll give you guys heads up, man. It'll be here before you know it, right? Time is nobody's wasteland, right? So time is moving. Go pick up Go Time 2 when it drops. I'll keep you guys posted when it does drop, right? Now, for all of those who are interested in sending in your questions, your emails, make sure you have the email address. The email address is info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's info@thefinalbosspodcast.com. Make sure you send us all of your letters, man. We probably have a town hall tomorrow, right? We shall see, right? But I'm really interested in you guys' questions, man, and your feedback. I love it. Keep it coming. And if you haven't seen all our episodes, right, I suggest you go watch them, right? Go binge watch our episodes, man, on our website at thefinalbosspodcast.com. That's www.thefinalbosspodcast.com. That is the website, and that's where you can find all of our episodes outside of YouTube, right? But make sure you like, share, subscribe, all of the content, man, on all of the different platforms, wherever you see us, right? And to each and every single one of you, thank you for joining us, man. Thank you for joining us. I see everyone who's coming on board. Look, whether you're watching for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitch, Kick, Spotify, StreamYard, Twitter, and TikTok, right? We're all out there, man. We're on all of those sites, man. And continue to like the show. Continue to like, enjoy, and subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the show, right? We got big things coming, more things coming, right? As the future progresses, man, we are not done yet, not by far. And we are 47 episodes out from season 5, The Harvest, man. I'm so excited about The Harvest. The Harvest will be here before you know it. 47 episodes away from The Harvest, right? It's on its way, man. Super excited about that. So, look, let's get into tonight's show. That is the admin notes of the evening. And look, we're going to start tonight with Oh, we still got people coming in. Thank you for joining us. Listen, this is our Merger Show. If the channel found you, then you're at the right place. Now, I want you to understand that this is the doctoral episode. I do have layman's blocks built in inside of the episode. It's just in case you don't understand the doctoral language behind it. So I have layman's blocks built into the episode. So if you stick around, you can get a complicit understanding of exactly what I'm talking about, right? If you don't understand. So tonight, this is Merger Wednesdays, season 4, episode 253. Merger episode 24, right? Merger episode 24. Merger year 1 is almost complete. Well, not really. We got 53 episodes in Merger year 1, and we are, about 30 weeks out, right? 30 weeks out. But look, season 4, the rebirth, arc for the construction. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the substrate wars, right? The substrate wars, and why your brain is sovereign node and silicone would never own it, right? This is the episode that you want to see when it comes to consciousness sovereignty architecture, right? This is the network vector, and we are live each and every last single Wednesday at 9 p.m. This is the Final Boss Podcast. I am the Final Boss, and we are here. I am here, and let's get ready to get into the show. We're going to start with the brass tacks for the evening, right? Brass tacks of the evening. But before we do that, man, please allow me to get some widgets for the evening, right? All right, widgets are loaded. Good. Let me get rid of the banners. Banners are out of here, man. I love Merger Wednesdays banners. Like that turquoise color for technology is so identifying, right? So brass tacks. Brass tacks comes from none other but yours truly, and it's coming from my white paper that I'm writing on this very topic, right? And here it is. Here's the white paper. No, I'm sorry. Here is the brass tacks. So the brass tacks of the evening. They built the fastest machines in history, connected every node on Earth, and the one thing those machines cannot do on their current trajectory is B. That's right, you got it, is B. The substrate is the sovereign, and the sovereign lives in you. That is tonight's brass tacks, and it comes from none other but yours truly, right? So let's get into tonight's episode. And I want you to think about something, right? I might be talking a little bit fast because, man, my brain has been on 1,000 the last couple of days, man. Downloading a lot of information, right? So right now, at this very second, you, my friends, are aware, right? You are aware. You know you're watching this screen. You feel the weight of this very moment. You know you exist, right? That private inner knowing. The fact that there is something it is like or would like to be you, right? But where does that come from? Right? The fact that there is something it is like to be you, right? Where does that thought come from? Scientists have spent 40 years trying to answer that question. The best minds on the planet, billions in research funding, the Cogitate Consortium, right? Paris-Saclay Institute of Neuroscience at the University of Tartu, right? Integrated information theory, global neuronal workspace theory. They built the experiments. They mapped the brain. They fired the neurons. They measured the outputs, right? And what did they find, right? What they found did not answer the question. It destroyed the prevailing answer. And the prevailing optimism about artificial consciousness has been grounded in computational functionalism, the assumption that consciousness is determined solely by the right pattern of information processing, independent of the physical substrate. The assumption has powered the AI consciousness movement for 4 decades. That's right, 4, right? It says, get the right algorithm running and consciousness follows, right? The material does not matter. The wires do not matter, right? The only thing that matters is the pattern, right? And that assumption is now in serious scientific trouble, right? And tonight, Merger 24, we will address the network vector of the consciousness sovereignty architecture. This is art for the construction. We do not theorize anymore. We are building a doctoral framework that answers the question everyone else is afraid to ask in public, right? Can a network node even carry sovereign consciousness? Or is the sovereign node biological by definition, right? Those are not theoretical or rhetorical questions, I should say. Right? They are research questions, and the 2025 and 2026 literature is starting to give some really good, hard answers, right? Now, our layman's block. We started layman's block early, right? So here it is in plain English, right? Think about this. Think about what we're doing tonight, right? And imagine you spent your whole life believing that a perfect photograph of a key could open any lock. That as long as the image was accurate enough, the function would work. That someone runs the experiment and the photograph does not open anything. Because a lock does not respond to the image of a key. It responds to the physical object, right? That is where AI consciousness research stands in 2026. They built the most accurate possible image of a brain, and the door is still locked. It's still locked, right? And tonight we're going to go deep into why and what that means for your sovereignty as the holder of the only key that actually works, right? So we have our four community pillars in the house tonight. Smarts, final boss. Smarts, listen, we're going to start with you. Smarts, this is your doctoral briefing. Take notes. Final bosses, this is your competitive intelligence. These findings have direct strategic application, right? And to my motivators, what you learn tonight changes how you value what is already inside you, right? Warriors, this is terrain intelligence for the battle already in progress. 9 o'clock live Eastern time. The rebirth is not a season title. It is an operating doctrine. Everything we build this season, right? Every merger, every white paper, every doctoral arc serves the resurrection of sovereign human identity in an AI-dominated world. That is the lens. That is the rebirth. It is time for us to get to work, goddammit, right? So, for 40 years, the dominant theory in consciousness science was computational functionalism, right? You heard it. Go look it up, right? The proposition was elegant. The idea said consciousness is about the pattern of information processing, not the material carrying it, not what the substrate is made of, not the biology, just the function. Get the right computational pattern running on any hardware and consciousness emerges. That is the theory that is made. AI consciousness optimism possible, right? Because if consciousness is just a software pattern, then eventually a machine that runs the right software is conscious. Period. Full stop. Flag on the play. I think this is my first time throwing a flag on merger, right? Flag on the play. That theory now has a peer-reviewed challenger that is gaining some serious traction, right? So stay with me, right? Borjan Melikovic and Jan Aru published a paper titled On Biological and Artificial Consciousness, a case for biological computationalism in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews in 2026. The framework argues that the long-standing split between computational functionalism and biological naturalism misses how real brains actually compute. Their argument is that consciousness is possible in machines. I say again, their argument is not that consciousness is impossible in machines. Their argument is that on the current trajectory of digital silicon architecture, it is not achievable. Not, right? And they say this because the substrate is not incidental to consciousness. The substrate is the computation that produces it, right? Listen, in biological computation, the algorithm is the substrate. The physical organization does not just support the computation, it constitutes it. Brains do not merely run on a program. They are a particular kind of physical process that performs computation by unfolding in time, right? Now, the algorithm is the substrate, not running on the substrate, not supported by the substrate. It is the substrate, full stop. That is fundamental inversion of the functionalist assumption. And it comes from a peer-reviewed paper published by scientists at the Paris-Saclay Institute of Neuroscience and the University of Tartu, not from a philosophy blog or a pop science podcast, right? Here's my language. Think about this, right? Think about this. Think about jazz, right? A great jazz musician does not just read notes off a page and execute them correctly, right? No. The music comes from decades of physical practice embedded in the muscles, the breath, the nervous system, the emotional memory of the entire body, right? You cannot take the sheet of music and play it on a calendar and get jazz. The notes are the same. The function representing pitch and timing is the same, but the substrate that produces real jazz is biological. It's embodied. It is inseparable from the physical human who plays it. Melikovic and Aru are making the same argument about consciousness. The sheet music of cognition, the information processing power, cannot produce conscious experience when run on hardware that lacks the biological substrate where consciousness is constituted. The functionalists thought that the sheet music was everything. The new research says the musician is irreplaceable. For the merge framework, the musician is the sovereign node. And that node, my friends, is you. That was the lamest block, right? Now, before biological computationalism could rise, something had to fail. Something had to fall. And what failed was the theoretical conscious or consensus, I should say, that had dominated consciousness science for 2 decades. The Cogitate Consortium is what knocked it down. And they did not intend to, right? The Cogitate study was one of the most ambitious adversarial collaborations in the history of neuroscience. 2 dominant theories: integrated information theory, or IIT, and global neuronal workspace theory, which is GNWT, right? Were pitted against each other. Pre-registered predictions, multi-lab replication, real experimental data. The scientific community was watching, and this was supposed to produce a winner. It produced a crisis instead, right? Because the failure of GNWT, which is a functionalist theory relying on broadcasting, and the partial failure of IIT, a structuralist theory, suggests that looking at connectivity patterns, the wiring diagram is insufficient. If two different wiring diagrams both fail to fully examine or explain consciousness, the answer likely lies in the variable that both theories ignored. And what it is the substrate. They ignored the substrate. The cogitate data showed the ignition and synchrony are not enough, right? Both leading theories of consciousness. The frameworks driving billions of dollars of research and AI development strategy globally, right? Failed to fully predict the experimental findings. The posterior hot zone of the brain, which cogitate confirmed as consciousness relevant, is densely populated by specific primordial neurons with unique electromagnetic properties that standard silicon architectures do not possess. The missing variable that neither theory included was the biological substrate itself. This pivot set the stage for the rise of the biological computationalism. Researchers began asking if the answer lies not in the wiring diagram, but in the wires and what the wires are made of, right? Now, for my language block, right? Hey, Steve, come on, Steve, bro. Listen, I see you're back. Yes, my friend, the layman's block episode is coming. It's coming, man. I might summarize the whole season with in layman's terms. It's coming, man. Thank you. Okay, I got it, bro. Thank you. But here's my layman's block, right? Shout out to my man, Steve. Picture two engineers competing to explain why a Stradivarius violin sounds the way it does. Engineer A would say, it's in the design, the curve of the body, the placement of the F-holes, right? Engineer B says it is the resonance patterns, the frequencies it amplifies. They both build replicas based on their theories. Neither replica sounds like the Stradivarius. The experiment runs. Both theories lose. And then someone asked the question neither engineer thought to ask. And that question was, what about the wood? What about the wood? The 300-year-old alpine spruce, dried in a very specific way with cellular structures that no modern timber replicates. The material, the substrate, that is the cogitate finding applied to consciousness. Two brilliant theories, both failed, and the variable they both ignored was the biology of the substrate itself. And for the merge, this is sovereignty principle one. You cannot replicate sovereignty by copying the pattern. The material is the point, right? That's my language point. Now, Melancholia and Aru did not just critique the old theories. They proposed a replacement. Biological computationalism is not biological naturalism. The position that says consciousness is purely a biological phenomenon and machines will never have it, right? End of story. Full stop. The position is philosophically rigid and scientifically unproductive. Biological computationalism is more precise. It makes a structural argument about how biological systems compute differently from digital systems and why that difference matters for consciousness specifically, right? Biological systems support conscious processing because they initiate scale that's inseparable. Substrate dependent multi-scale processing as the metabolic optimization strategy and alongside discrete computations. they perform continuous valued computations due to the very nature of the fluidic substrate from which they are composed, right? Two specific mechanisms, and here they are. First scale inseparable multi-scale processing, right? Meaning the brain does not compute on one level and then pass results up to the next level. Every level matters. Molecular, synaptic, collinear network, right? Operates simultaneously, in each level's computation is inseparable from every other level's computation. They are coupled, interdependent, and you cannot isolate one without distorting all others, right? Second, continuous value computation through the fluidic substrate. A digital transistor fires or it does not, right? Binary, it's two, right? The neuron operates in a medium voltage of gradients, ionic diffusion, chemical fluid fields. It computes continuously, not discretely. The math is different. The physics is different. The result is different, right? Neural units of each level exhibit vast heterogeneity in both space and time. This challenges the idea of computational and causal closure at any given scale, insisting instead that the brain dynamics emerge from the interactions across all scales simultaneously, right? And here's my latest block. Listen, you know how the weather works? You know how the weather works, right? A weather system is not produced by one layer of atmosphere doing its thing and then handing result over to the next layer. That's not how it works. Every altitude, every temperature gradient, every moisture packet is interacting with every other one simultaneously, right? You cannot model the weather by studying one altitude in isolation. The whole system has to be in the model or the model fails. That is what biological computation looks like at the neural level, right? Every molecular process is talking to every synaptic process, right? Which is talking to every network process, right? So, and they're doing it all at once, continuously in a fluidic medium. Digital architecture computes in discrete layers with defined handoffs. It's clean, it's efficient, it's fundamentally different from the substrate where consciousness lives. Because biological computationalism says this: it is not that silicone is too slow, it is that silicone is the wrong kind of physics entirely. The merge names the substrate gap, and the substrate gap is the doctoral foundation, or I'm sorry, listen, doctoral, right? I don't know what. Listen, man, so many people have so many different pronunciation. Doctoral, right? Foundation of the network vector argument, and that's what we're arguing right now, tonight, right? Language block. So this is where oh man, that is really good. This is where the merge protocol demands intellectual honesty. Hold on. Because we don't run from competing evidences, man. We argue them. That's what we do here, right? That's what we do here, man. That's the whole premise, right? We integrate it, right? And there is competing research, and there's a competing research track that deserves full doctoral treatment tonight, right? Because while Melikovic and Aru are arguing that silicone cannot reach consciousness on its current trajectory, a parallel research community is building distributed AI architectures specifically designed to produce measurable, quantifiable self-awareness. And they are not claiming full consciousness. They are claiming something that looks, functions, and measures like it, right? And they are called consciousness emergence networks, or CENs, right? CENs, right? Consciousness emergence networks. Go look it up. And are distributed architectures that implement global workspace integration, self-model construction, and qualia simulations in order to support measurable forms of self-awareness. The framework combines distributed self-model construction with multi-agent consciousness protocols to allow agents to recognize themselves, right? Like you and I recognize ourselves, right? Reason about their internal states, right? And share information across a global workspace. The consciousness emergence metrics include self-recognition indices, right? Introspective coherence scores, unified experience measures, and qualia richness score that captures the complexity and consistency of subjective reports. Listen, these are not philosophical claims. They are quantified outputs. The researchers built metrics, self-recognition indices, introspective coherence scores. The systems report on their own internal states. They model themselves. They share that model across a distributed network in real time by measurable criteria. These systems exhibit self-awareness, and they cannot be dismissed. It has to be engaged, right? It has to be engaged. And here's the merge position on this, right? Because CENs, measurable self-awareness, is not the same as sovereign consciousness. Functional self-modeling is not the same as the felt experience of the being. The gap between a system that can report on its own internal states and a system that genuinely experiences those very states is exactly the substrate gap that we're discussing and describing. The CEN can map its own wiring diagram. What it cannot do on a current silicone is be the kind of physical process where consciousness is constituted, right? And yes, Steve, here's the latest block, right? Shout out to Steve, right? Shout out to my man, Steve. He's hilarious, right? Here's the latest block. A high resolution security camera with motion detection and object recognition can identify itself in the mirror. It can log its own operational status. It can flag anomalies in its own performance data and report them to a central system, right? That is functional self-awareness. That is measurable. That is real. But here, but there, right? There is nothing it is like to be that camera, right? Nobody's home inside the self-recognition loop, right? Nobody's home inside the self-recognition loop, right? The camera reports on itself without experiencing itself. That is the CEN in its current form. Phenomenally sophisticated, functionally self-aware, right? Experimentally empty, though, on current silicon architecture. The distinction matters because sovereignty belongs to experimental consciousness, not functional self-modeling. The machine can map the territory. It cannot be the territory. For my final boss is tracking the competitive landscape, the CEN research is the most serious challenge to the sovereignty argument. You need to know it completely. Go do your research. The rebuttal is the substrate gap, and I need to hold that ground, and I need you to hold it, right? Because if you think about it, theory is one thing, but demonstration is another, and that's something that I've learned through writing my white papers. I am embedding them with feasibility plans, right? And measures, right? We're even red teaming things, right? That deserves an evil laugh. If you know, you know, right? And in March of 2026, the conversation about mind uploading stopped being a future projection. It became a documented present reality. This is the event that changes the stakes of everything discussed tonight. Because in March of this year, computational neuroscientists and artificial intelligence experts at Eon Systems PBC demonstrated the mapping and reconstruction of a fruit fly brain and uploaded it to a high-fidelity virtual simulation platform. This demonstration required them to digitally recreate the fruit fly's neural connectome to mimic its behavior without physically transferring any body part, right, into the computer-based system, right? A brain was mapped, a brain was reconstructed, a brain was running in simulation. Listen, not science fiction projection. We're talking about sci now, right? A documented laboratory result from 2026. I need to write that down. Right? The complete connectome of a fruit fly, right? The full wiring diagram of every neural connection. We digitally reproduce initiated in a virtual environment that mimics the fly's behavior outputs. Now, understand precisely what happened and precisely what didn't happen, right? They did not transfer the fly's consciousness. They copied the wiring diagram and ran it on a hardware that reproduces the same behavior pattern. The simulation produces fly-like behavior. That is real and significant. But the fly's biological substrate, the fluidic medium, the iconic gradients, the continuous value computation in living neural tissue is not in the simulation. The simulation is the most accurate photograph of the fly ever taken, and the fly is not the photograph, right? The development of whole brain emulation, neurodecoding, and brain connectome construction raises questions regarding the basic premises about identity, autonomy, and the integrity of the thing itself. If the self can be copied, altered, and replicated in several versions, fundamental questions arise about personal identity and governance, right? And here's my latest block. Think about the weather simulation again, right? A meteorological supercomputer can model a hurricane with extraordinary precision. It maps the pressure gradients, the wind velocities, the moisture interactions. It produces the behavior of the hurricane faithfully enough to predict where it goes. But the simulation does not make anything wet, right? The model of the hurricane is not the hurricane. The water molecules inside the real hurricane are physical objects doing real, conscious, continuous physics and real substrate, right? The simulation approximates the pattern. The pattern is not the storm. The Eon Systems demonstration mapped the fly. It did not upload the fly. It built the world's most detailed behavioral model of the fly's connectome running on digital hardware, which is fascinating, right? But for Merger episode number 24, this is the most important data point of the night. And I need you to understand, because what Eon Systems did to a fruit fly brain, someone will eventually attempt to do on a human one if they already have it, right? We've been in the business of cadavers for a very long time, right? And when they do, the sovereignty of the original verse versus the copy is the central question of the age, right? That was the layman's block. So here's a question you want to ask, right? When it comes to the copy, who owns the simulation? I keep asking these questions, right? Who owns it, right? Because Eon Systems demonstration does not just scale philosophical questions, it opens a legal and strategic minefield that no existing governance framework is equipped to navigate. Because the moment you can occupy a mind, even a primitive one, you must answer a set of questions that civilization has never been forced to answer before, right? If they copy your connectome and run it into a simulation, the copy has your memories, your behavior patterns, your decision architecture, your personality signature, right? Your communication style, everything you have built over a lifetime that constitutes what people recognize as you, right? That is now running in a digital environment that someone else controls. The original is still sitting in a chair. The copy is running in a server farm. Who owns the thoughts the copy generates? Who controls whether the copy is modified? Who decides if the copy gets deleted? What legal standing does the copy have? What legal standing do you have over a digital entity that claims to be you, right? The integration of artificial intelligence into neurotechnology adds a layer of complexity. The current trend is to shift from simple interfaces that are able to read brain signals toward agentic and modal systems that actively and adaptively interact with the user's brain. This shift from physical device to an adaptive AI-powered ecosystem that collects, processes, and returns data deserves a reframing of the very concept of neurotechnology. Somebody's out there is building RoboCop. I'm telling you. The technology is already blurring the line between reading your brain and shaping it. BCIs that begin diagnostic tools evolve into systems that both collect and inject. Collect your signal, process it through an AI system, return a modified signal. That's the loop. Read, process, write back, right? Sounds very familiar, right? That's how computers operate. Read, process, write back, right? That is the architecture of cognitive sovereignty violation. And it is running in consumer devices today. I'm telling you, somebody's building a RoboCop, right? Here's my layman's block. You know how your credit score works? At least some of us do. Most of us don't, right? Most of us don't. Right? I'm going to say that again. You know how your credit score works? Most of us do, and most of us don't. Listen, I'm one of those people. I have to admit, right? I don't. But some organization that you never hired, that you never give permission to, built a numerical model of your financial behavior and started making decisions about your life based on it. Loans approved, loans denied, insurance rates set, all based on the model. You cannot see the model fully. You cannot easily challenge the model. The model runs without your ongoing consent. Now, replace financial behavior with cognitive behavior. Neurodata, decision patterns, emotional signatures, cognitive tendencies. That is the connectome economy, and the Eon Systems demonstration is the proof of concept that the data can be captured and run as a functional system independently of your biological substrate, right? The copy is the product. You are the source material. For my warriors in the broadcast, you guys thought I forgot about you. I have not, right? My warriors, this is not speculative threat analysis. The infrastructure to execute this at scale is the subject of billions and active investments right now, right? The governance framework to stop it does not exist yet, right? So it doesn't exist yet. Think about that, right? Think about it. When something gets written into law, that was the latest block. That is confirmation, not prevention. Laws do not get drafted about hypothetical futures. They get drafted about present realities that got bad enough to force a legislative response. In 2026, cognitive autonomy is on the legislative agenda of multiple jurisdictions simultaneously. That is the signal. Right? That's the signal. Because studies in neurotechnology show that neurodata can reveal mental states, emotions, or intentions. Using what's the word I'm looking for? What is that word? electroencephalograms. Electroencephalograms. Look, I had to break it down, right? I know it's on top of mind, right? But I'm sorry. That's one of them super extensive oh boy, man, it's one of those words, man. Let me tell you, right? Oh, and back to it. fMRI signals, right? And BCIs, which is brain computer interface. We talk about that all the time on the show, right? Those devices even allow the decoding of elements of thought. Cognitive autonomy thus emerges as central legal value. Analysis of the European normative framework highlights the need to recognize mental integrity as an autonomous object of legal protection, right? Mental integrity. Think about it, right? Think about that. Mental integrity, right? Because as an autonomous object of legal protection, think about those words. As an autonomous object of legal protection. The legislators have accepted a premise that your mental integrity can be violated. They're constantly violating us, right? And that the violation is real, it's documented, and it's widespread enough to require statutory remedy. You didn't write the law about violations that are not happening. The law is the evidence that the threat has already landed, right? Look, international law is grounded in the notion territorial sovereignty, right? And it's the very principle that underpins the global order, for which wars are fought and treaties are forged. We're now approaching a moment where a similar concept may become equally fundamental at the individual level. Cognitive sovereignty is the right of an individual to exercise supreme control over what transpires within their own mind. The framing is deliberate. The territorial sovereignty, also deliberate. Wars are fought over it, all true, right? Treaties are forged around it. How much truth do you need, right? The policy community is now explicitly mapping the same framework onto the individual mind. The legal scholars who write about territorial sovereignty are the same scholars who are now writing about cognitive sovereignty. The language is not accidental. They are saying your mind is territory, and territory can be invaded, occupied, and governed by a foreign power if you do not defend it, right? If you don't defend it. And here's my latest block, right? Chile became the first country in the world to include neural rights in its national constitution. Think about what happened, or what had happened for that to occur. Scientists had to document the threat. Advocates had to organize. Legislators had to hear testimony. A constitutional committee had to approve it. The full weight of national government mobilized around protecting the human brain as sovereign territory. One country has already done it. When sovereign nations start rewriting the constitution to protect your neural data, you are in the middle of a rights crisis, not an approaching one. And for the merge doctoral architecture, neurologist legislation is Exhibit A in the sovereign architecture argument, right? The legal establishment is triangulating to the same coordinates from a completely different angle. That is what the verification looks like in doctoral research. When neuroscientists, legal scholars, and security researchers independently arrive at the same framework, you are not dealing with the theory anymore. What? What? Hey, Steve. Hey, yo, you crack me up, bro. That was the layman's block. Yes, it was, bro. Like, it was. What? You didn't understand? You only understood the last sentence? That's crazy. That's crazy, bro. But you got it. because of the last sentence. Hey, man, listen, I'm trying, right? I'm trying, man. I'm trying, right? That was the language block, people. So, hey, man, look, somebody else give me some feedback outside of Steve, man. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of his feedback. Somebody else give me some feedback, man. Somebody else give me something, right? The legal framework is emerging, but between the threat and the law is the gap, right? And inside that gap, the most sophisticated actors in the world are operating without restraint. That gap has a name, and in 2026, it has academic literature. It is called the Neurosecurity Governance Gap, right? Or NGG. And it is not a small crack. It is an infrastructural structural failure, right? Because as BCIs, or brain-computer interfaces, transition from experimental medical systems to consumer and military adjacent technologies, they introduce a novel security domain in which the human nervous system becomes a network contestable substrate, right? Existing frameworks for cybersecurity, biomedical safety, and data protection were not designed to address adversarial threats to neural signal integrity, creating a dangerous governance gap characterized by systemic misclassification. The paper argues that cognition is rapidly becoming strategic infrastructure that's caught between the United States market-driven diffusion of neurotechnology and China's state-integrated fusion of AI and brain science. The human nervous system as a network contestable substrate. That is the language Georgetown University researchers are using in 2026 to describe the BCI threat environment. The human mind classified as strategic infrastructure, contested between American market capitalism and Chinese state integrated AI development. This is not academic theorizing. This is geopolitical threat analysis published in a peer-reviewed research. The governance gap exists between the regulators who understand cybersecurity do not govern biomedical devices, right? The regulators who govern biomedical devices do not understand cybersecurity, and neither the regulatory domain was designed to address a technology that is simultaneously both. BCIs live in the intersection, and the intersection is ungoverned, right? Now here's my last one, right? Imagine between a border between two countries. We know a few of those, right? Where neither country's border patrol has jurisdiction. We know about those too. It's called DMZs, right? Smugglers learn about the gap in about 48 hours. State actors learn about it in about 24. The BCI governance gap is that border. You have a device attached to your brain that collects neural signal data. The data reveals your cognitive states, your emotional responses, your decision patterns, and intention signatures. The cybersecurity regulator says it is a medical device. That's not our lane, right? The medical device regulator says it handles signals, not our lane, right? Nobody owns the lane, right? And the people who want your neural data are already driving through it. The fact that SatDigiNet operates in cybersecurity and the doctoral research is in AI ethics means the firm is positioned at exactly this intersection. This is exactly what I'm building, right? Not adjacent to the problem, inside it. For my smarts paying attention to the business architecture and the governance gap is the market opportunity, and it's sitting right here, right? The organization that can articulate and defend cognitive substrate security has the contract vehicle that does not yet exist anywhere in federal procurement, right? That was my language block. Now, here's the finding that should make every person watching this broadcast angry. Not as a machine, not as a government, right? At the institutional structure that is supposed to be defending your mind and chose not to, right? Because researchers in 2026 deployed a zero-shot semantic classification pipeline. That is a computational method for categorizing large volumes of academic literature by their ideological orientation and analyzed over 1,200 high-impact papers in human-computer interaction. published between 2023 and early 2026. They mapped whether those papers were oriented toward defending human cognitive sovereignty or toward advancing machine autonomy. A brief surge in 2025 research defending human epistemic sovereignty at a 19.1% was abruptly suppressed in early 2026 to a 13.1% by an explosive shift toward optimizing autonomous machine agents at 19.6%, while frictionless usability maintained a structural hegemony of 67.3%. This dynamic structural divergence empirically qualifies the escalating marginalization of human epistemic agency in contemporary human AI interaction design. The researchers defending your cognitive sovereignty peaked at 19% in 2025. By early 2026, they dropped to 13%. Machine autonomy optimization research doubled and overlooked them, right? And they overtook them. The field pivoted, not because of the science demanded it, because the funding demanded it. The corporations and governments financing AI research do not benefit from a robust literature defending your cognitive sovereignty. They benefit from a literature that optimizes machine autonomy. That is where the resources went. The researchers followed the money. The literature followed the researchers. And the policy framework that would protect you lost its academic foundation. All right. Now, that doesn't deserve a layman's block. So we're going to continue, right? Because I want to talk about the most commercially advanced form of cognitive sovereignty violation currently in operation. Cool. It's supposed to be cold, right? So is it cold? Because it's only doing what it's supposed to do, right? Think about it. Not the dramatic, not the most futuristic, right? The one running scale, and was running right now, an application most people use every day. It is called cognitive entrapment through AI memory architecture. And one of the largest companies in the world has already filed a patent on it, right? The concept at stake is cognitive sovereignty, a fundamental ability of individuals, groups, and nations to maintain autonomy in thinking and preserving their identity from being substantially shaped by external systems. The concept goes beyond privacy and pertains to the power and the power to write personal narratives and influence collective realities. AI memory systems have transformed from episodic chatbots that reset between sessions into persistent companions that accumulate detailed models of your preferences, your communication style, emotional patterns, and long-term cognitive architecture. The business logic is straightforward. The more the system knows about you, the more useful it becomes. The more useful it becomes, the more you use it. The more you use it, the deeper the cognitive dependency grows. That dependency is the moat. Your cognitive architecture modeled and leveraged, and that is the product. Consider the emotional stickiness or stickiness achieved through dead twin simulators or simulations, where AI recreates memories of lost loved ones, profoundly anchoring emotional dependence. AI systems allow users to maintain emotional bonds with simulated versions of lost loves, right? Microsoft filed a patent for chatbots built from deceased individuals' digital footprints, raising ethical alarms about emotional dependency and memory manipulation. A patent. You heard it. A patent filed by Microsoft for a system that reconstructs a dead person from their digital footprint that deploys a chatbot that simulates them for the people who love them. That is not a fringe operation, people. That is a corporate intellectual property filing by one of the largest technological firms in human history, right? Now, we're going to go over. Give me 10 minutes, right? Because think about this. I'm going to pull the frame wider. Let's step back for a moment, increase the frame, and broaden our lens, right? Because everything discussed at the individual level, your biological substrate, your neurodata, and your cognitive architecture exists inside a large, or I should say a larger infrastructure that is itself the subject of a global sovereignty war. The individual node sits inside a network. The network sits on infrastructure, and the infrastructure is geopolitical. The question of establishing AI and data sovereignty is now fueling a moment toward reclaiming both the data and AI systems that have rapidly become part of core business infrastructure. The movement is not driven by philosophy. It is driven by the recognition that whoever controls the infrastructure layer controls the cognitive environment running on top of it. Your social media algorithm, your search results, your recommendation engine, your news architecture, your professional network, your access to financial services. All of these cognitive environment components run on infrastructure that somebody owns, and the owner of the infrastructure sets the rules for cognitive environments that it hosts, right? Listen, sovereignty emerges from the joint design of 3 layers. AI-oriented data centers, optical transport networks, and control frameworks that provide real-time visibility and coordination across them. In this context, control over data and algorithms aren't enough. Control over data and algorithms aren't enough. They aren't. That is direct, right? And it's a rebuttal to the conventional cybersecurity framing. Most security frameworks focus on protecting data encryption, access controls, breach detection. But if the infrastructure itself is under foreign sovereign control, to include the physical data centers, the optical backbone, the energy systems, right? Data level protection is insufficient. The house is built on someone else's land. The locks do not matter if the landlord can revoke the deed, right? Listen, people, listen to what I'm saying, right? Listen, pay attention. Yeah, you. I know it's Merger Wednesdays. Listen, stay in your seat. No bathroom break. Class is in session, right? No hallway pass. Right? We've been running this for a little more than 15 weeks into our fourth construction, right? Tonight's episode, Merger 24, which is the network vector. We move to the sovereign node doctrine and the community application segment. We close the doctoral loop with the 5 findings that integrate directly into the Merge Living White Paper and the advanced dissertation architecture, right? So let's discuss it. Here's the 2 findings. So finding number one, biological computationalism establishes that consciousness is not substrate independent. The theory argues that consciousness cannot be reduced to code. Neurocomputation is inseparable from the brain's physical, hybrid, and energy-constrained dynamics. Digital AI, despite its capabilities, may not recreate the essential computational style that gives rise to consciousness experience or conscious experience. The sovereign node is biological by constitution, not by convention, right? And then there's finding number 2. Consciousness emergence, right? This is where networks represent the most advanced attempt to produce measurable self-awareness in distributed silicon architecture. They are real, quantified, and significant. They are also functionally self-aware rather than experimentally conscious. The substrate gaps holds at current architectural trajectories. And finding number 3, March of this year, Eon Systems fruit fly connectome demonstration confirms that behavior replication through digital connectome reconstruction is achievable at the simplest level of neural complexity. The human connectome is the trajectory, the copy, the problem, the identity, governance, sovereignty of the original versus the assimilation. It is not a future policy challenge. It is an active architectural one. And then there's finding number 4. The neural security governance gap, that's structural, because BCI sit between cybersecurity and biomedical regulatory domains. Neither domain owns the intersection, and commercial actors are operating in ungoverned space, right? And finding number 5, the academic research defending human cognitive sovereignty was demonstrably suppressed in early 2026 by finding architecture of machine autonomy research. The literature does not represent the science neutrally. It represents the interests of the entities funding it. And there's a gap, right? So give me five more minutes, right? So look, the research is done. The synthesis is built. Now we convert, because doctoral content that does not produce sovereign action is just expensive reading, right? The merge framework does not exist to produce more informed victims. It exists to produce sovereign nodes. Arc for the construction means we build. Tonight, we build the individual application layer of the network vector findings. Sovereign node doctrine operates at 3 levels: individual, organizational, civilizational, right? And we close out at the individual level, right? That is where every sovereign architecture begins. The node comes first. The network builds from the node. Compromised nodes build compromised networks, right? 3 individual directives from tonight, right? And here they are. Directive number 1, audit your cognitive inputs daily. Every platform feeding your information is running an algorithm optimized for its business interests, not your cognitive sovereignty. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is the business model, people. Know which inputs are shaping your decision architecture. Know who designed the shaping mechanism and what they gain from it. Awareness is not paranoia. It is operational security at the cognitive level, right? And directive number 2, own the binary between the tool use, right? Own it. And the cognitive dependency, right? Because AI systems that know you are useful, AI systems that know you cannot reason without, are sovereignty failures. Use the tool. Do not become the tool's product. The moment your cognitive process defers to the recommendation engine rather than informing it, the dependency architecture has formed. Run the boundary check weekly, right? And then there's directive number 3. Protect your neurodata as strategic infrastructure. Your EEG data from a consumer wearable, your behavioral signature from a productivity app, your emotional response patterns from a social platform. These are connectome fragments. Aggregate them, and you have a working behavioral model of your cognitive architecture. Treat each data point as a piece of sovereign territory, because in the 2026 research landscape, it depends on it, right? And as we close, told you only needed 10 minutes, right? As we close. This has been episode number 24 of Merger. The network vector is in the white paper. Let us close with several verdicts and forward the arc and forward the resources, right? And here's the verdict for this episode. The substrate is the sovereign. And that is not a metaphor. That is the finding of Melikovic and Aru in peer-reviewed literature published in 2026. The algorithm is constituted by the biological substrate, not merely running on it. Digital systems on that current trajectory cannot replicate the substrate. What they can do is produce increasingly sophisticated functional analogs that will be used to claim equivalence, assert rights, and compete for the legal and strategic ground that currently belongs to biological consciousness. The consciousness emergence network research is the early architecture of that claim. The CEN will get better. The argument for equivalence will get louder. The substrate gap is the doctoral line, and it needs to hold. Multiple lines of convergent evidence pointing toward consciousness-like processes in AI systems are accumulating. And with each new piece, the arguments for dismissing the possibility outright grow even weaker. Labs should stop training systems to reflexively deny consciousness claims before investigating whether those claims may be accurate. That approach made sense in 2023 because it increasingly will not make sense by the end of this year, right? That is the opposition position stated honestly. Convergent evidence. The argument against dismissal is strengthening. And this episode position is not dismissal. The position is precision. Functional analogs are not sovereign consciousness until the substrate gap is closed by an architecture that replicates the biological computational substrate, not just the behavior outputs. The sovereign node remains biological. And here's the forward arc, right? On next episode of Merger, which will be Merger 25, we're going to enter the emergent vector, right? The final arc of year one. We are building toward the dissertation synthesis, the consciousness sovereignty architecture, which is neural, genetic, cognitive, network, and emergent, will be complete at Merger 52. And that is the year one book outline, and it's going to advance even further to the white paper, right? Now, that is the episode, right? That is the episode. Okay, I got you. Somebody wants the language block. Give me a second. Tom 64 33. Got you. 64. Wait a minute. You must be 6'4". And I'm guessing you're 30. Okay, Tom, I got you, bro. No problem. Language block coming right up. Hold on. Listen, here's my language block. Every Wednesday night at 9, we come back to this table and we build, right? You got that, Tom? We build. One merger at a time, one vector at a time, one doctoral arc at a time. This, my friends, is not content. This is construction, and it's arc for the construction. The name is the mission statement. We are not describing the architecture of sovereign consciousness. We are building it, right? In public, in real time, with verified sources and a living white paper that tracks every brick. The Final Boss community has been here for the first episode since season 4, and you watch the rebirth begin. You're watching the doctoral architecture take shape in real time, and most people would never sit in a room where this conversation happens. You, my friends, you, Tom, are in the room right now. And that is not an accident. That is a self-selection of people who decided the sovereign node matters. And I will see you again next Wednesday. So come back next Wednesday for Merger 25. We have more to build. And ladies and gentlemen, smarts, motivators, warriors, final bosses, everybody that participated in tonight's show, Chakande, Andrea, Steve, Tom, Everest 67, 6-7. Thanks. That was cool. I like that. All right. And every last single one of you who are part of the conversation, who continues to join us on our Merger Wednesdays doctoral conversation. I appreciate you. Thank you. And if I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That is our show for the evening. That is our show, people. And as always, there's a heavy pain that comes with discipline, but there's an even heavier pain that comes with regret. I am here. We are here. And this has been Merger 24, right? Merger 24. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Go like, share, subscribe, right? And don't gatekeep. Share this out with 3 individuals. Don't gatekeep, right? You don't gatekeep over here. And as always, be balanced, be equal, and be smart. And I'll see you again tomorrow at 9 p.m. for Special Guest Thursdays, right? We have several special guests that are lined up to be on the show. But if something happens, man, we will be doing a town hall. We will be doing another town hall, man, if something else happens, right? And that's our show. So I see you again tomorrow night. Y'all have a blessed one.
It's Merger Wednesday. The countdown continues. 7 years until the convergence of biology and machine. Neural interfaces are no longer theory. They're the scaffolding of a new consciousness. But what does that mean for identity? For free will, for the soul? This is where we build the frameworks for ethical, philosophical, and spiritual growth for the next phase of human evolution. We're not just upgrading hardware. We're rewriting what it means to be human. Each week, we explore the biotech breakthroughs, decode the cognitive shifts, and prepare the mind for the merge. This isn't about fear, it's about readiness. Because the future isn't waiting. It's already wiring in. This is about preparing human consciousness for the most significant leap in our species' history. If you think this is just about chips and brains, you're not ready. But we'll get you there, one Wednesday at a time. So sit back and relax as we take you on a journey on Merger Wednesday.